I was asked by a student in my class to go over a word problem similar to from one of our homeworks here, and we didn't have time in class. So this is page 548 of Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, Analyze, Connect, Explore, Algebra 1, number 25, page 548, and I'm going over this problem now. To do this problem, first we read the problem. The height in feet above the ground of a football that has been thrown or kicked can be determined by the expression negative 16t squared plus vt plus h, where t is the time in seconds, v is the upward velocity, and h is the initial height in feet. Write an expression for the height of a football when time t. So at time t, when the initial upward velocity is 20 feet per second and the initial height is 6 feet. Okay, so the first thing, after reading the problem, I kind of go through again. I know I want to write an expression for the height of the football. Well, this is an expression for the height of the football, right? The height in feet above the ground. When time is t, well, they got t in there, and the initial upward velocity is 20 feet. Well, that would be the v. And the initial height is 6 feet. So I kind of highlight the 6 feet, the 20 feet. We're looking at this expression, and we'll fill in some of that information now. All right, so let's write it out. We're working with negative 16t squared plus v is now going to be the initial velocity of 20 feet per second. So that is 20, the t is still a t, plus the h, which is the initial height of 6. All right, now, this is an expression. It now has the velocity and height. This is exactly what they asked for. So this would be my final answer. I taking this, plugging in this for the height and this for the velocity is what gave us that expression. Okay, now that we found this expression, part B asks us to factor your expression from part A. Okay, to factor the expression from part A, I would first see if there is a common factor in all that. And I do see that 16, 20, and 6, they're all even numbers. The only factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. So 6 doesn't go into these two, but 2 does go into all of them. So I'm going to factor out a common factor of 2. In fact, I'm going to factor out a negative 2 because I like to get rid of the negative in the negative from the front term here. I don't like to have a negative there. Okay, so I'm going to factor out a negative 2, which is going to, when I do that, I'm going to divide all three terms here by negative 2. And that's going to give me 8t squared plus, not plus, minus a 10t minus 3. Okay, now, at this point, I would look, I'm asking to factor this, so I would look at the factors of negative 3 and the positive 8. Negative 3 only has the factors of negative 1 and 3, or 3 and negative 1. 8 has the factors of 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and that would be it for that one. So I could have 1, 8, negative 1, negative 3. I could have 2, 4, 3, or I could have 1, 8, 3, negative 1, and 2, 4, negative 1, 3. So these are different combinations I could work with. So looking at the outer part here, 1 times 3 is a positive 3. Inner would give me a negative 8. Positive 3 and negative 8, does that give me a negative 10? No. 2 times negative 1 would be a negative 2. 4 times 3 gives me 12. A negative 2 and a 12 does not add up to a negative 10. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 8 times 3 is 24. Definitely not going to work. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times, that's not going to work. So we got to try some other combination here. Let's see, if I did 8 times 3, that would be 24, plus the negative, that's not going to work. Let's see, if I do 4 times negative 1, it's negative 4, and 6, that doesn't work either. If I have negative 8 and positive 3, no. If I have, oh, wait a minute here. I could also, the 3 negative, okay, I could also, if I do the 12 and negative 2, that doesn't work. All right, so let's switch these around a little bit more. Let's try working with the 4 times the negative 3, which would be, well, I don't even show the negative 3 here at all, do I? I switched these things around. I'd switch the order, but I didn't switch the numbers. Oh, silly me. Okay, so I could have 1, 8 as one set of factors and negative 3 and positive 1. Doing that, I would say 1 times 1 is 1, negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. That doesn't work too well. All right, let's say if we make that, let's work with 2 and 4 with a negative 3 and a 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 3 times 4 is going to give you a negative 12. Negative 12 and 2 does add up to a negative 10. We found our key factors here. So to write it out, I still have that negative 2 as the GCF. I just carried that one down. I'm going to have this as the first coefficient. So I have 2x, or no, sorry, not x, 2t minus, because this is a negative 3, I have a minus 3, 3, and then this comes the second coefficient, t, plus 1. This number here becomes that second coefficient. Now, if I multiply this back, I would have negative 12t, positive 2t would give me that negative 10t. Negative 3 times 1 would give me a negative 3. And 2t times 4t would give me the 8t squared. Multiply those through by the negative 2, and I would end up back with this. So it looks like I have factored correctly, and this right here is my answer for the factored expression. But wait, there's more. There is a part C. Here we're asked to find the height after 1 second. To do that, we're going to do what I like to call plug and chug. We're going to take this 1, plug it in for t, the time, and the chug part is when you follow the order of operations to simplify the expression. So we're going to have negative 2. 4, instead of t, it's going to be 4 times 1 plus 1. And then we have 2, instead of being times t, it's going to be times 1 minus 3. All right, now first we need to simplify the multiplying within the parentheses here. We're going to get negative 2, this becomes 4 plus 1 in here. This becomes 2 minus 3 over here. 4 plus 1 is 5. 4 plus 1 is 5. 2 minus 3 is going to give me a negative 1. So I end up having 2 times 5 times negative 1. And when you have a negative times a positive, you get a negative. Negative result times a negative will give you a positive. 2 times 5 times 1 gives you 10 feet, which is the correct answer. So we have 10 feet in after 1 second. Okay, this is question number 23 from the same textbook. It is a word problem. It also is one that asks you to find the error, which I like about it. Now, she explained the error. Luna performed the work shown below to factor the polynomial. Luna performed the work shown below to factor the polynomial 24x squared plus 18x plus 3. Explain her error and find the correctly factored form. All right. Her error happens to be right here in the first spot here. She did find the correct GCF, but when she factored it out, you would be dividing all three of these by 3, and 3 divided by 3 does not give you a 0. So her error was when she factored out the 3 in the first step, comma, the last term should have been 1, not 0. Should not have been a 0. So what she should have had was a 1 right here, which means that if we take that part there, 8x squared plus 6x plus 1, we need to factor that one. The only factors of 1 are 1 and 1. The factors of 8 are 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. So we're looking for ones that are going to add to give me the 6. That would be 2x plus 1, because the second one's always going to be the 1 with this, and 4x plus 1. And don't forget the GCF, we had that originally, so that brings that back there. And if you do FOIL to double check here, 2x times 4x gives you 8x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. 4x times 1 is 4x. Add them together, you do get 6x. Multiply that through by 3, and you will end up with 24x squared. 3 times 6, 18x. 3 times 1, you get 3. So the correct response should be this, plus you need to have this written, because it does ask you to explain. Anytime you see an explain, there needs to be complete sentences. Let's just make that an N better there. Okay, should not 1, not 0. Okay. And complete sentences means we do have a period at the end. Okay, another word problem from the textbook here. Still that same page 548. This is actually 548. This is number 24. It says the length of Rebecca's garden was 2 times the width, W. Rebecca increased the length and width of the garden so that the area of the new garden is 2w squared plus 7w plus 6 square yards. By how much did Rebecca increase the length and the width? Now, this seems kind of confusing at first, but if you remember that the area of a rectangle garden is going to be length times width, so that means that this right here is length times width. And if we can factor this into 2 factors, then we know what the length and the width are. So, to do that, we work with the 2w squared plus 7w plus 6. Looking at the factors of 2 and 6, I have 1 and 6. 2 and 3. Everything's positive, so you know this is all going to be a positive thing here. Factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Working with just these at first, let's see what we've got. Well, 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 1 is 2, 6 plus 2 is not going to give me 7. 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 2 is 4. Add those together, you do indeed get 7. So this right here is the one we're going to work with. We're going to have W, because the first coefficient is going to be a 1. First constant going to be a plus 2. Then we're going to have a 2W and a plus 3 based on this 3. All right, so here are the length and width. Which one's which? Well, it does say that Rebecca's garden was 2 times the width. The length is 2 times the width. Well, 2W would be 2 times the width. W would be the width. So if this is the original width, and this is the original length, then the width got 2 larger, and the length got 3 larger. So I would say the width increased by 2 yards, and the length increased by 3 yards. I know this handwriting is horrible. My pen here is getting a little messed up, but hopefully the width, what it says, the width increased by 2 yards and the length increased by 3 yards. 2 times the width was the length, so here it was increasing by 3. W is the width, here it is increasing by 2. Width times length gave you the area, which is the information they gave you there. So again, the final answer is this whole sentence down here.